The dust clung to Beatrice Owens like a second skin as she hauled the water bucket from the well, her rough hands already blistered from the morning's laundry work. And she couldn't help but wonder if anyone in Laredo, Texas, would ever see past the plain brown dress and sunburnt face to notice she existed at all. It was September 1882, and the heat still shimmered off the desert landscape in waves that made everything look like a mirage. Beatrice set the bucket down on the weathered wooden porch of the boarding house where she worked, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand. At 22 years old, she had resigned herself to a life of quiet service, invisible to most of the townspeople who passed by without a second glance. Her mousy brown hair was always pulled back in a severe bun, her figure hidden beneath shapeless dresses that had been mended so many times they were more patches than original fabric. She had no family to speak of, her parents having succumbed to fever when she was 16, leaving her with nothing but the clothes on her back and a desperate need for employment. Mrs. Henderson, the boarding house proprietor, was a harsh woman with exacting standards and little patience for daydreaming. Beatrice had learned quickly to keep her head down and her thoughts to herself, moving through her days with mechanical efficiency. She scrubbed floors, changed linens, prepared meals, and fetched water, all while remaining as unnoticed as the furniture. The sound of horses thundering down the main street drew her attention, and she squinted against the bright sunlight to see a group of riders approaching. Even from a distance, she could tell these were not ordinary cowboys. Their horses were magnificent animals, well fed and groomed, and their saddles gleamed with silver fixtures that caught the light. The townspeople began emerging from shops and homes, drawn by the commotion. "That's Nathan Irons," she heard someone whisper nearby. "Back from his business in San Antonio." Beatrice had heard the name, of course. Everyone in southern Texas knew about Nathan Irons, the cattle baron who owned the largest ranch in the valley. The Double I Ranch sprawled across thousands of acres, employing dozens of cowboys and producing some of the finest beef cattle in the state. At 27, he had inherited the operation from his father 5 years earlier, and had somehow managed to triple its size and profitability. He was a legend in these parts, spoken of with a mixture of awe and envy. She watched as the riders pulled up in front of the saloon across the street. The man who dismounted from the lead horse moved with the easy confidence of someone who had never known want or uncertainty. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly at the collar of his expensive shirt. Even from across the dusty street, Beatrice could see the quality of his clothes, the custom-made boots, the silver buckle on his belt that probably cost more than she earned in a year. Nathan Irons removed his hat, running a hand through his hair as he spoke to his companions. His profile was strong, his features well-defined, and when he laughed at something one of his men said, the sound carried across the street with a warmth that made Beatrice's chest tighten unexpectedly. "Stop gawking and get that water inside," Mrs. Henderson's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "Those floors won't wash themselves." Beatrice jumped, embarrassed to be caught staring, and quickly grabbed the bucket. Water sloshed over the rim, soaking the front of her dress, but she didn't dare stop to wipe it away. She hurried inside, her cheeks burning with humiliation. What had she been thinking, standing there like some starstruck fool? Nathan Irons existed in a completely different world, one where people like her were nothing more than servants to be overlooked. The rest of the day passed in its usual blur of endless tasks. By evening, Beatrice's back ached and her hands were raw, but at least she had the small attic room to retreat to. It was barely more than a closet, with a narrow bed and a single window that looked out over the alley, but it was hers. She sat on the edge of the bed, carefully removing her boots to examine the new blister forming on her heel. A knock at the door startled her. Mrs. Henderson rarely came up here, and Beatrice couldn't imagine who else would seek her out. "Yes, there's a situation downstairs, Mrs. Henderson said through the door, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "I need you immediately." Beatrice shoved her feet back into her boots, ignoring the pain, and opened the door. Mrs. Henderson's face was flushed, her usually impeccable hair slightly disheveled. "What's wrong?" "Mr. Irons and his men have taken rooms for the night, all 4 of our best rooms. And Mary has taken ill, she's vomiting and can't possibly serve dinner. You'll have to do it." Beatrice's stomach dropped. "Me? But I've never served in the dining room, I don't know how." "You'll figure it out," Mrs. Henderson snapped. "Put on a clean apron, pin your hair properly, and for heaven's sake, try not to look like you've been dragged through the desert. These are important guests, and if you embarrass me, you'll be looking for new employment." 20 minutes later, Beatrice stood in the kitchen, her hands trembling as she loaded plates onto a serving tray. She had changed into her only other dress, which was slightly less worn than her work clothes, and had done her best to tame her hair. But looking at her reflection in the small mirror by the door, she knew it was hopeless. She was still plain, still unremarkable, still the kind of woman who blended into the background. The dining room was more crowded than usual, filled with local businessmen eager to be seen in the presence of Nathan Irons. Beatrice pushed through the kitchen door, keeping her eyes lowered as she approached the first table. Her heart hammered so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. She managed to serve the first few tables without incident, though her hands shook so badly that the plates rattled. Then she approached the corner table where Nathan Irons sat with 3 of his ranch foremen. Up close, he was even more imposing than she had imagined. His presence seemed to fill the space, commanding attention without effort. "Evening, madam," one of the foremen said politely as she set down his plate. "Smells delicious." Beatrice managed a small nod, not trusting her voice. She reached across to place another plate, and that's when disaster struck. Her sleeve caught the edge of a water glass, sending it tumbling directly into Nathan Irons' lap. Time seemed to slow down. Beatrice watched in horror as the water spread across his expensive trousers, soaking the fabric. The conversation in the room died instantly, all eyes turning to witness her mortification. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, grabbing a napkin and reaching toward him before realizing how inappropriate that would be. She jerked her hand back, the napkin falling to the floor. "I'm so terribly sorry, sir." "I didn't mean to. I'll get a towel. I'll pay for the cleaning. It's all right," Nathan said, and his voice was nothing like she expected. It was gentle, almost amused. "It's just water. No harm done." She finally dared to look at his face and found him smiling at her. Not the mocking smile she had braced herself for, but something genuine and kind. His eyes were a striking shade of green, she noticed, and there were small lines at the corners that suggested he smiled often. "I'm very clumsy," she stammered, bending to retrieve the napkin with shaking hands. "Mrs. Henderson will be furious. This is my first time serving, and I've already ruined everything." "First time?" Nathan stood, brushing at his wet trousers with his own napkin. "Well, then I'd say you're doing remarkably well, all things considered." "My first time roping a calf, I ended up lassoing myself and falling face first in the mud. This is far less embarrassing." One of the foremen chuckled, and gradually the normal dinner conversation resumed around them. Beatrice felt tears prickling at her eyes, a combination of relief and lingering mortification. She retrieved a fresh glass and carefully refilled it, setting it well away from the edge of the table. "Thank you for being kind," she said quietly. "Most wouldn't be." Most are fools, then, Nathan replied, settling back into his chair. Accidents happen. No use making someone feel worse about it. She finished serving their table without further incident and fled back to the kitchen as soon as she could. Her hands were still shaking, but now for a different reason. He had been kind to her. Actually kind when he could have had her fired with a single word. She couldn't remember the last time anyone had shown her such casual grace. The rest of the evening passed more smoothly, and by the time the last guests had retired to their rooms, Beatrice was exhausted. She was scrubbing the last of the dinner plates when Mrs. Henderson appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Mr. Irons wishes to speak with you," she said, her expression unreadable. Beatrice nearly dropped the plate she was holding. "With me? Why, I already apologized for the water. I'll be more careful, I promise. Just go," Mrs. Henderson interrupted. "He's waiting in the front parlor." Beatrice dried her hands on her apron, her mind racing through possibilities, none of them good. Perhaps he had changed his mind about being gracious. Perhaps he wanted to ensure she understood how lucky she was that he hadn't demanded her dismissal. She walked to the parlor on leaden feet, pausing in the doorway to find him standing by the window, looking out at the darkened street. "You wanted to see me, sir?" Her voice came out barely above a whisper. He turned, and again she was struck by how different he seemed from the larger-than-life figure she had imagined. There was nothing cruel or arrogant in his expression, just a thoughtful openness that made her feel oddly exposed. "I did, yes. I wanted to apologize if I embarrassed you earlier." Sometimes my attempts at humor fall flat. Beatrice blinked in confusion. "You're apologizing to me, but I'm the one who spilled water on you. And I'm the one who made light of your distress in front of a room full of people. I realized afterward that might have made things worse, not better." He moved closer and she noticed he had changed into dry clothes. "What's your name?" "Beatrice Owens, sir. Please, just Nathan. I've never been comfortable with formality." He smiled again and she felt something flutter in her chest. "How long have you worked here, Beatrice?" 6 years, sir." "I mean Nathan." His name felt strange on her tongue, too familiar, but he had asked. "Since I was 16. And you usually work in the kitchen, and cleaning, laundry, whatever Mrs. Henderson needs." She twisted her hands in her apron, uncertain why he was asking these questions. "I'm not usually fit to be seen by guests." Something flickered in his eyes at that statement. "Who told you that?" "No one had to tell me. I have a mirror." The words came out more bitter than she intended, and she quickly added, "I know my place is what I mean. I'm grateful for the work." Nathan was quiet for a moment, studying her with an intensity that made her want to squirm. "Do you enjoy the work?" The question was so unexpected that she answered honestly before she could think better of it. "No, but enjoyment is a luxury I can't afford. The work keeps me fed and housed, and that's more than many have." "That's a terribly sad way to live," he said softly. Beatrice felt her defenses rise. She didn't need pity from a rich rancher who had never known a day of hardship in his life. "Not all of us have choices, Mr. Irons. Some of us simply survive as best we can." If he was offended by her sharp tone, he didn't show it. Instead, he nodded slowly. "You're right, of course. I apologize again. I seem to be making a habit of that tonight." He moved toward the door, then paused. "I'll be staying in town for a few days, handling some business. Perhaps we'll cross paths again." "Perhaps," Beatrice said, though she couldn't imagine why a man like him would seek out someone like her. "Good night, Mr. Irons." "Nathan," he corrected gently. "Good night, Beatrice." She stood in the empty parlor long after he had gone, her mind turning over the strange conversation. There had been something in the way he looked at her, something she couldn't quite name. Not pity exactly, but a kind of genuine interest that seemed impossible. She shook her head, dismissing the thought. He was probably just being polite, the way wealthy people sometimes were when they wanted to feel magnanimous. The next morning, Beatrice was scrubbing the front steps when Nathan emerged from the boarding house. He was dressed for riding, his boots freshly polished and his hat tipped back slightly on his head. She quickly moved aside to let him pass, keeping her eyes down. "Good morning, Beatrice." She looked up, startled that he remembered her name. "Good morning, sir. I thought we agreed on Nathan." There was a teasing note in his voice that made her lips twitch despite herself. "Nathan," she amended, and felt that same flutter in her chest when he smiled. "I'm heading to the land office to review some property deeds. Terribly boring business. What does your day hold?" She gestured at the bucket of soapy water beside her. "This, mainly. And then laundry and preparing the vegetables for tonight's dinner and probably mending linens." "Would you like to escape for an hour or two?" The question was casual, but there was something hopeful in his expression. "I could use a guide to show me the town. I've been so focused on the ranch these past few years that I've barely spent time in Laredo proper." Beatrice's heart jumped, then plummeted. "I couldn't possibly. Mrs. Henderson would never allow it, and I have too much work to do." "What if I asked Mrs. Henderson's permission and offered to compensate her for your time?" "Why?" The word burst out before she could stop it. "Why would you want me to show you around? You could ask anyone, someone more suitable." Nathan crouched down so they were eye level, his expression serious. "Because I enjoyed talking with you last night. Because you're honest in a way most people aren't. And because I'd like to get to know you better, if you're willing." Beatrice searched his face for signs of mockery or ulterior motives but found none. He seemed completely sincere, which only confused her more. "I don't understand why you'd be interested in someone like me. I'm nobody." "You're somebody to me," he said simply. "Will you come?" She should say no. This was foolish, dangerous even. Rich men didn't court poor washerwomen, and if this was his idea of entertainment, she would only end up hurt. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, "I'll need to ask Mrs. Henderson." His smile was brilliant. "I'll wait here while you do, Mrs. Henderson was predictably suspicious when Beatrice explained the request, but the mention of compensation softened her considerably. 2 hours, she said firmly. "And you stay in public places. I won't have anyone saying you're behaving improperly." "Yes, madam," Beatrice agreed quickly before the woman could change her mind. She washed her hands and face, wishing desperately that she had something better to wear than her faded work dress, but there was no help for it. Nathan was waiting on the porch, and when he saw her, he offered his arm as naturally as if she were a fine lady instead of a servant. "Where should we start?" he asked as they walked down the street. Beatrice felt acutely aware of the stares they were drawing. She could practically hear the gossip spreading in their wake. "The general store has interesting items," she suggested. "Mr. Patterson imports things from back east, and the church is quite beautiful if you're interested in architecture." They spent the next hour wandering through Laredo, and gradually Beatrice began to relax. Nathan asked questions about the town's history, about her observations of the people and places, and he actually seemed to listen to her answers. He had a quick wit that surprised her into laughter more than once, and he seemed genuinely interested in her opinions on everything from local politics to the best place to buy fresh bread. "I should confess something," Nathan said as they paused in the shade of a large cottonwood tree near the church. "I've been to Laredo dozens of times. I know this town fairly well." Beatrice felt her stomach sink. "So this was just a game to you?" "No, not at all. I wanted an excuse to spend time with you, and I couldn't think of a better one." He turned to face her fully, his expression earnest. "I'm not very good at this, I'm realizing. I should have just been honest from the start." "Honest about what?" About the fact that from the moment I saw you yesterday, standing on that porch with the sun in your hair, I couldn't stop thinking about you. And when we spoke last night, I knew I wanted to know everything about you. Where you're from, what you think about, what makes you smile. He ran a hand through his hair, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. I know this must seem strange. We barely know each other, but I've never felt this way before, and I didn't want to let the opportunity pass without at least trying. Beatrice's mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. Men like Nathan Irons didn't fall for women like her. You can't be serious. I'm a washwoman. I'm plain and poor, and I have nothing to offer someone like you. You're beautiful, Nathan said firmly, and you're intelligent and honest and stronger than you probably realize. As for having nothing to offer, that's where you're wrong. You offer the possibility of something real, something genuine. Do you know how rare that is in my world? I think you're making fun of me. Beatrice took a step back, feeling tears threaten. This is some kind of joke or a bet with your friends or, Beatrice, look at me. His voice was gentle but insistent. When she reluctantly met his eyes, he continued, I swear to you on everything I hold dear that I'm being completely sincere. I understand if you don't feel the same way. We've only just met and I'm probably moving far too fast, but please don't dismiss this because you think you're not worthy. If anything, I'm the one who's not worthy of you. That's ridiculous, she whispered. You're Nathan Irons. You could have anyone. I don't want anyone, I want you. The simple declaration hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning. Beatrice felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. She had spent so many years protecting herself, expecting nothing, wanting nothing, that she had forgotten how to hope. But here was this impossible man, looking at her like she mattered, like she was something precious. It terrified her. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Say you'll have dinner with me tonight, somewhere nice, just the two of us. Let me court you properly, Beatrice. If you decide I'm not what you want, I'll accept that, but give me a chance to show you what we could be together. She knew she should refuse. This path led nowhere good for someone like her. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something that made her brave. She saw possibility. All right, she heard herself say, I'll have dinner with you. His smile was worth every bit of the fear coursing through her. I'll pick you up at 7, and Beatrice, wear whatever makes you comfortable. You're perfect exactly as you are. The afternoon passed in a blur of anxious preparation. Beatrice had no fancy dresses, no jewelry, nothing suitable for dining with the richest man in the valley. Mary, recovered from her illness, took pity on her and loaned her a simple blue dress that was only slightly too big. Mrs. Henderson, perhaps sensing an opportunity for the boarding house to gain favor with Nathan Irons, allowed Beatrice to use her own room to prepare, with its larger mirror and better lighting. When Nathan arrived at precisely 7 o'clock, Beatrice was waiting in the parlor, her heart hammering against her ribs. He wore a dark suit that emphasized his broad shoulders, and when he saw her, his face lit up with such genuine pleasure that she felt beautiful for the first time in her life. You look lovely, he said, offering his arm. Ready? The restaurant he took her to was the finest in Laredo, a place Beatrice had never dreamed of entering. The proprietor greeted Nathan by name and led them to a private table in the corner, away from curious eyes. A candle flickered between them, casting warm light across the white tablecloth. I'm going to embarrass myself, Beatrice said, looking at the array of silverware with growing panic. I don't know which fork to use or how to behave in a place like this. Nathan reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The contact sent electricity through her entire body. Then we'll be embarrassed together. I'm not very good at this either, if I'm being honest. I usually eat dinner standing up in the ranch kitchen, arguing with my foreman about cattle prices. Somehow I doubt that, Beatrice said, but she felt herself relaxing slightly. It's true. My mother despairs of me. She keeps trying to marry me off to suitable young ladies from good families, and I keep finding excuses to avoid them. He paused, his thumb tracing small circles on the back of her hand. None of them ever made me feel the way you do. And how do I make you feel? The question was bold, but the candlelight and his touch made her brave. Like I'm standing on the edge of something vast and terrifying and wonderful all at once. Like maybe all the things I thought I wanted aren't actually what I need. His eyes searched hers. How do I make you feel? Beatrice considered lying, protecting herself with safe words and careful distance. But his honesty deserved the same in return. Scared, hopeful, like maybe I've been sleepwalking through my life and I'm only now starting to wake up. I'll try not to make you scared, Nathan promised. The hopeful part, though, I'd like to encourage that. They talked through dinner, the food barely noticed as they shared pieces of themselves. Nathan told her about growing up on the ranch, about the weight of expectation that came with being an only child, about his dreams of building something even greater than what his father had created. Beatrice spoke about her parents, the fever that had taken them, the years of grinding poverty and loneliness that had followed. I think you're the strongest person I've ever met, Nathan said when she finished. To survive all that and still have kindness in you, still have hope, that's remarkable. I didn't have much hope until today, Beatrice admitted. Then I'll make it my mission to give you more reasons to hope every day. He said it lightly, but she could hear the serious promise underneath. When they finally left the restaurant, the night air was cool and clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on velvet. Nathan walked her back to the boarding house slowly, as if reluctant for the evening to end. At the door, he took both her hands in his. "Can I see you again tomorrow?" He asked. "I have to work. Then I'll come by during your break, or after you're finished for the day. Whenever you have time, I'll be there." Beatrice laughed, a sound that felt foreign but wonderful. "You're persistent." "Only when something matters to me, and you matter, Beatrice Owens. You matter more than I can explain." He lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, his lips warm against her work-roughened skin. The gesture was so tender, so reverent that Beatrice felt tears spring to her eyes. "Good night, Nathan." "Good night, Beatrice. Dream of me." She did dream of him, and when she woke the next morning, she wondered if the previous day had been a fantasy. But then she saw the blue dress hanging carefully in her small room, and she knew it was real. Nathan Irons wanted to court her. The thought was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. True to his word, Nathan appeared at the boarding house during her afternoon break. And the day after that. And the day after that. He brought her wildflowers picked from the open range, still dusty and imperfect. He brought her books from his father's library, claiming he'd love to hear her thoughts on them. He brought her laughter and conversation, and a kind of attention she had never experienced. The town buzzed with gossip, of course. Beatrice heard the whispers, saw the speculative glances. Some thought Nathan was toying with her, that he would tire of his charity project soon enough. Others thought she was trying to trap him, using feminine wiles to secure a wealthy husband. Neither understood the truth, which was simply that two people had found something unexpected and precious in each other. A week after their first dinner, Nathan invited Beatrice to visit the Double I Ranch. Mrs. Henderson, who had become surprisingly accommodating since Nathan started courting her employee, gave Beatrice the entire Sunday off. Nathan arrived with a buggy instead of on horseback, and they drove out of Laredo as the sun climbed higher in the cloudless sky. The ranch was even more impressive than Beatrice had imagined. The main house was a sprawling structure of adobe and wood, built by Nathan's grandfather and expanded over the generations. Pastures stretched to the horizon in every direction, dotted with cattle bearing the Double I brand. Cowboys working the herds waved to Nathan as they passed, and he returned their greetings by name. "You know all of them?" Beatrice asked, impressed. "Of course. They work for me, they deserve to be known. Some of them have been with the ranch since before I was born." He helped her down from the buggy, his hands lingering at her waist. "Come on, I'll show you around." He introduced her to the foreman, Diego Martinez, a weathered man in his 50s with kind eyes and a knowing smile. "So you're the young lady who's got the boss walking around with his head in the clouds," Diego said, shaking her hand warmly. "Good to meet you, Miss Owens. It's about time someone made him think about something other than cattle." Nathan's mother, Eleanor Irons, was a different matter entirely. She was waiting on the porch when they approached the main house, her posture rigid and her expression carefully neutral. She was an elegant woman in her late 50s, dressed in expensive fabrics that would have looked absurd on anyone else in this dusty landscape. "Mother, this is Beatrice Owens," Nathan said, his hand supportive at the small of Beatrice's back. "Beatrice, my mother, Eleanor. Mrs. Irons, it's an honor to meet you," Beatrice said, offering a small curtsy that felt ridiculous but seemed expected. Eleanor's eyes swept over her, taking in every detail of her simple dress and worn shoes. "Miss Owens, Nathan has spoken of you." The words were polite, but the tone was arctic. Beatrice felt herself shrinking under that assessing gaze, all her insecurities rushing back. This was Nathan's world, a world of wealth and refinement that she could never truly belong to. "Shall we have lunch?" Nathan suggested, seemingly oblivious to the tension. "I'm starving." Lunch was an ordeal. Eleanor questioned Beatrice about her background, her education, her family. Each question designed to highlight just how unsuitable she was. Beatrice answered honestly, refusing to pretend to be something she wasn't, but each answer felt like another nail in the coffin of her hopes. "My son could have his pick of young ladies from the finest families in Texas," Eleanor said as dessert was served. "The Cartwrights, the Montgomerys, even the Sinclairs from Dallas have expressed interest." "Mother, that's enough," Nathan said, his voice firm. "I'm not interested in the Cartwrights or anyone else. I'm interested in Beatrice." "A phase," Eleanor dismissed. "You're young, you're curious about how other people live. But when it comes time to actually settle down, you'll choose someone appropriate." Beatrice set down her fork, her appetite gone. "Mrs. Irons, I appreciate your honesty. You're right, of course. I'm not appropriate for your son, and I never will be. I don't have the proper education or background. I can't help him navigate society or entertain important guests. I'm just a washwoman from a boarding house." She stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "Nathan, thank you for a lovely morning. I think I should go now." "Beatrice, wait." Nathan stood as well, reaching for her hand. "Your mother is right. We both know she is." Beatrice felt tears threatening but refused to let them fall. Not here. This was a beautiful dream, but it's time to wake up. She walked out of the dining room, out of the house, her vision blurring. She had no idea how she would get back to Laredo, but she couldn't stay here another moment. The humiliation was too much, the reality too harsh. Nathan caught up with her halfway to the barn. "Don't listen to her. Please, Beatrice, don't give up on us because of my mother's prejudices." "They're not prejudices, they're facts." Beatrice turned to face him, letting him see the tears now. "I don't belong in your world, Nathan. Today proved that. Your mother will never accept me, and society will never see me as anything but a fortune hunter. I won't do that to you. I won't let you sacrifice your reputation and your family for someone like me. Someone like you." Nathan's voice rose with frustration. "Someone intelligent, kind, and brave. Someone who makes me laugh and challenges me to be better. Someone I'm falling in love with." The words stopped her cold. "You can't love me, you barely know me." "I know enough. I know that I want to wake up every morning knowing I'll see you. I know that when something happens, good or bad, you're the first person I want to tell. I know that the thought of losing you feels like losing part of myself." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. "I love you, Beatrice, and I don't care what my mother thinks or what society says. I only care about you." Nathan, she wanted to say it back, wanted to believe this could work, but the fear was too strong. "You don't have to say anything right now," he interrupted gently. "Just don't give up. Please, give me time to make this right." "How? Your mother hates me." "She doesn't hate you. She's afraid of change, afraid of losing control, but she'll come around when she sees how happy you make me." His confidence was so absolute that Beatrice almost believed him. "And if she doesn't?" "Then I'll choose you anyway." His eyes were fierce with determination. "Every time, Beatrice, I'll choose you." She let him hold her then, let herself believe for just a moment that love might be enough to overcome all the obstacles between them. His heart beat steady against her ear, and she thought maybe, just maybe, this impossible thing could be real. The ride back to Laredo was quiet, both of them lost in thought. When they reached the boarding house, Nathan helped her down from the buggy and walked her to the door. "I meant what I said," he told her. "I love you and I'm not giving up." "I know," Beatrice said softly. "I'm not giving up either, I'm just scared." "Then we'll be scared together." He kissed her forehead, a sweet gesture that made her heart ache. "I'll see you tomorrow." But the next day Nathan didn't come, nor the day after that. Beatrice tried not to panic, tried to tell herself he was just busy with ranch business, but doubt crept in. Perhaps his mother had convinced him after all. Perhaps he had realized that Beatrice wasn't worth the trouble. On the third day, Diego Martinez appeared at the boarding house, his hat in his hands. "Miss Owens, I need to speak with you." Beatrice's blood ran cold. "Is Nathan all right?" "He's fine, physically. But there's been some trouble at the ranch. Someone's been cutting fences and running off cattle. Nathan's been out tracking the rustlers with some of the hands. He wanted me to come tell you he hasn't forgotten about you, that he'll come as soon as he can." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you for letting me know. Is it dangerous, what he's doing?" Diego's expression was grim. "Cattle rustling is serious business out here. These aren't just thieves, they're organized. We think they're working with someone on the inside, someone who knows our routines. Nathan's determined to stop them before they cause real damage." "Please tell him to be careful," Beatrice said. "Tell him I understand and I'll be here when he gets back." Diego tipped his hat. "I'll tell him, miss. He'll be glad to hear it." The days that followed were anxious ones. Beatrice went through her work mechanically, her mind always on Nathan. She heard rumors in town about the rustling operation, about shootouts and narrow escapes. Each story made her stomach churn with fear. A week after Diego's visit, Mrs. Henderson came to find Beatrice in the laundry room. "There's someone here to see you. A Mrs. Irons." Beatrice's hands stilled in the wash water. "Eleanor Irons." "The same. She's waiting in the parlor and she doesn't look happy about it." Beatrice dried her hands, her mind racing. What could Eleanor possibly want with her? She smoothed her dress and hair, knowing it was futile but unable to stop herself from trying to look presentable. Eleanor sat ramrod straight on the settee, her face a mask of composure. But when Beatrice entered, she saw something unexpected in the older woman's eyes. Worry. "Miss Owens, thank you for seeing me." "Of course, Mrs. Irons. Would you like tea?" "No, thank you. I won't take much of your time." Eleanor paused, seeming to struggle with her words. "I came to apologize for my behavior when you visited the ranch. I was rude and presumptuous, and you didn't deserve that." Beatrice sank into the chair across from her, stunned. I appreciate that, madam. I also came to tell you that Nathan is missing. The world tilted. What? He went after the rustlers 3 days ago with a group of men. They found the gang's camp up in the hills and there was a confrontation. 2 of the rustlers were killed, but the rest escaped. In the chaos, Nathan disappeared. Diego and the others have been searching, but there's no trace of him. Alina's voice cracked slightly. I thought you should know. I need to help search, Beatrice said, immediately standing. Where are they looking? Miss Owens, the terrain is dangerous and these men are violent criminals. You can't possibly. I don't care about the danger. Nathan is out there somewhere and I'm not going to sit here doing laundry while he needs help. Beatrice was already moving toward the door. I can ride. I know how to handle myself. Please, tell me where to go. Alina studied her for a long moment, and something shifted in her expression. You really do love him, with everything I am, Beatrice said simply. I know I'm not what you wanted for him, but I love your son, Mrs. Irons, and I'm going to find him. Then I'm coming with you, Alina said, standing with sudden decision. He's my son. And if you're brave enough to risk yourself for him, the least I can do is join you. They rode out together within the hour, Alina having borrowed a horse and riding clothes from a friend in town. Diego met them at the ranch, his face haggard with exhaustion and worry. Mrs. Irons, with respect, this isn't safe for you or Miss Owens. We have men out searching, and now you have 2 more, Alina said firmly. Where was Nathan last seen? Diego sighed but seemed to recognize he wasn't going to win this argument. Up in the canyon country, about 10 miles north of here. We've been working a grid pattern, but it's rough terrain with lots of places to hide. Then we'll search too, Beatrice said. Every pair of eyes helps. They joined the search party, splitting into groups to cover more ground. Beatrice partnered with one of the older ranch hands, a quiet man named Tom who seemed unfazed by her presence. They rode through canyons and arroyos, calling Nathan's name until their voices were hoarse. As the sun began to set on the 2nd day of searching, Beatrice felt despair creeping in. The land was so vast and Nathan was just one man. He could be anywhere, injured or worse. She couldn't let herself think about worse. We should head back, Tom said reluctantly. Can't search in the dark. Just a little longer, Beatrice pleaded. Please. Tom nodded and they continued on. That's when Beatrice heard it, a faint sound that might have been a voice. Did you hear that? Tom pulled his horse to a stop, listening. Might be wind in the rocks, or it might be Nathan. Beatrice urged her horse forward, following the sound. It led them to a narrow ravine, steep-sided and shadowed. At the bottom, barely visible in the fading light, was a dark shape that might have been a person. Nathan, Beatrice screamed, her voice echoing off the rock walls. The shape moved slightly. Beatrice! The voice was weak but unmistakable. Oh, thank God! Beatrice was off her horse before Tom could stop her, scrambling down the rocky slope with complete disregard for her own safety. Stones skittered beneath her feet, and she slid the last few yards, landing hard beside Nathan's prone form. He was conscious but clearly in pain, his face pale and his leg bent at an unnatural angle. You came, he said, reaching for her hand. I knew you would. Of course I came. I love you, you idiot. She examined his leg, trying not to panic at the obvious break. What happened? Horse spooked during the chase. Threw me into this ravine. I think I've been drifting in and out for a while. His grip on her hand tightened. I'm sorry I couldn't come see you. Don't you dare apologize. We're going to get you out of here. She looked up to where Tom was signaling others in the search party. Within minutes, more riders arrived, including Alina, who made her own careful descent into the ravine. Nathan, my darling boy, Alina said, her composure finally cracking. We were so worried. I'm all right, Mother. Beatrice found me. He smiled up at Beatrice despite his obvious pain. My guardian angel. Getting Nathan out of the ravine was a delicate operation that took hours and involved ropes, a makeshift stretcher, and several near disasters. By the time they had him safely back at the ranch house, with the doctor examining his broken leg, Beatrice was exhausted and covered in scrapes and bruises. Alina found her sitting on the porch, staring out at the darkness. The doctor says Nathan will make a full recovery. The leg was a clean break and there's no sign of infection. You saved his life, Miss Owens, if he'd been out there much longer. I'm just glad we found him, Beatrice said quietly. Alina sat down beside her, a gesture that felt significant. I was wrong about you, completely wrong. I thought you were after Nathan's money, that you were unsuitable and common. But watching you these past few days, seeing your courage and your devotion, I realize you're exactly what my son needs. Beatrice looked at her in surprise. Mrs. Irons, Alina, please. If you're going to marry my son, we should be on a first-name basis. Alina's smile was tentative but genuine. He is going to ask you to marry him, you know, probably as soon as the doctor leaves his bedside. I don't know what to say. Say you'll make him happy. Say you'll love him the way he deserves to be loved. That's all I ask. Alina took her hand, a peace offering. And say you'll forgive a foolish old woman for judging you before she knew you. There's nothing to forgive, Beatrice said, squeezing her hand. You were protecting your son. I understand that. They sat together in comfortable silence until the doctor emerged, reporting that Nathan was demanding to see Beatrice. She found him propped up in bed, his legs splinted and bandaged, but his eyes bright and alert. There she is, he said as she entered the room. Come here. Beatrice crossed to the bed, taking his outstretched hand. You gave us quite a scare. I'm sorry. But I'm glad it happened in a way. Glad you broke your leg. Glad that it showed me beyond any doubt that you're the woman I want to spend my life with. You came after me, Beatrice. You risked yourself to find me. That's not something I'll ever forget. He tugged her hand, pulling her down to sit on the edge of the bed. Marry me. Beatrice's breath caught. Nathan, you're on pain medication. You might not mean I mean it. I've meant it since the day I met you. I just didn't know it yet. His eyes were serious despite the drugs in his system. I love you, Beatrice Owens. I love your strength and your honesty and the way you make me feel like I can be better than I am. I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. Say yes. Yes, Beatrice whispered, tears streaming down her face. Yes, of course, yes. He pulled her down for a kiss, gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Beatrice was laughing and crying at the same time. I don't have a ring yet, Nathan said ruefully. I had it all planned out, you know. I was going to take you to the spot where the Rio Grande bends, where you can see for miles in every direction. I was going to get down on one knee and give this whole speech about how you're my horizon, my future. This is better, Beatrice assured him. This is real and perfect and us. They were married 6 weeks later, on a crisp October morning in 1882. The ceremony took place at the ranch, with the whole town of Laredo in attendance. Beatrice wore a dress that Alina had commissioned from a seamstress in San Antonio, a beautiful creation of ivory silk that made her feel like a princess. Nathan stood at the altar on crutches, his leg still healing, but his smile was radiant as he watched her walk down the aisle. Diego gave her away since she had no family of her own. Mrs. Henderson cried through the entire ceremony, pleased to have been proven right about letting Beatrice have that first afternoon off with Nathan. Mary caught the bouquet and blushed when one of Nathan's ranch hands winked at her. I, Nathan Irons, take you, Beatrice Owens, to be my lawfully wedded wife, Nathan said when the moment came, his voice steady and sure. I promise to love you, honor you, and see you for the remarkable woman you are, every single day for the rest of my life. I, Beatrice Owens, take you, Nathan Irons, to be my lawfully wedded husband, Beatrice replied, her voice thick with emotion. I promise to love you, support you, and stand by your side through whatever adventures life brings us. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan dropped his crutches and pulled Beatrice into his arms, kissing her thoroughly while the crowd cheered. She clung to him, marveling at how her life had transformed. A few months ago, she had been invisible, resigned to a life of drudgery. Now she was loved, cherished, and beginning a new chapter filled with possibility. The reception was a joyous celebration that lasted well into the night. There was music and dancing, barbecued beef from the double I heard, and enough cake to feed half of Texas. Beatrice danced with Nathan despite his injury, the two of them swaying slowly while he whispered all the things he planned to do with her once they were alone. When they finally retired to the room that had been prepared for them in the main house, Beatrice felt nervous for the first time all day. Nathan sensed her tension and took her hands, kissing each palm tenderly. "We don't have to do anything you're not ready for," he said softly. "I'm happy just to hold you." But Beatrice shook her head, suddenly sure. "I'm ready, I want this, I want you." Their first night together was tender and sweet, full of whispered endearments and gentle discoveries. Nathan treated her like she was something precious, something to be treasured, and for the first time in her life, Beatrice truly believed she was worthy of love. In the weeks that followed, Beatrice settled into her new life as Mrs. Nathan Irons. It was an adjustment, learning to manage a household of this size, learning to navigate the social expectations that came with her new position. But Nathan was patient and supportive, and Alina proved to be an invaluable ally, teaching Beatrice the skills she needed without making her feel inadequate. Beatrice also insisted on making changes of her own. She opened the ranch's resources to the town's less fortunate, establishing a program to provide employment and training to young women in situations similar to what she had experienced. Nathan supported her fully, proud of her compassion and her desire to help others. "You're amazing, you know that," he said one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. "You could have just enjoyed your new life of comfort, but instead, you're using your position to make a real difference." "I remember what it feels like to be invisible," Beatrice said, leaning against his shoulder. "I don't want anyone else to feel that way if I can help it." Their first year of marriage was not without challenges. There were townspeople who still whispered about Beatrice's humble origins, who questioned whether she was truly suitable to be the wife of Nathan Irons. But Nathan faced down the gossip with unwavering support for his wife, and gradually, even the harshest critics had to acknowledge that Beatrice was exactly what the Double I Ranch needed. She brought warmth to the big house that had been missing since Nathan's father died. She implemented efficiencies in the household management that saved money and improved morale among the staff. She supported Nathan's business decisions while also offering her own insights, many of which proved remarkably astute. But more than any of that, she made Nathan happy in a way that was obvious to everyone who knew him. He smiled more, laughed more, seemed lighter and more content. And Beatrice blossomed under his love, growing more confident and self-assured with each passing month. In the spring of 1884, Beatrice discovered she was pregnant. She told Nathan one morning over breakfast, and he dropped his coffee cup in shock before sweeping her into his arms and spinning her around the room. "We're having a baby," he kept repeating, his voice full of wonder. "We're going to be parents." Alina was equally delighted, immediately beginning plans for the nursery and offering advice that Beatrice sometimes wanted and sometimes found overwhelming. But it came from a place of love, and Beatrice was grateful for her mother-in-law's support. The pregnancy was not easy. Beatrice suffered from terrible morning sickness in the early months, and as she grew larger, the Texas heat made her uncomfortable and irritable. But Nathan was attentive and patient, bringing her cool drinks and reading to her in the evenings when she was too tired to move. Their son was born on a cold December night, arriving early and small but healthy. They named him William, after Nathan's father, and from the moment Beatrice held him, she understood a new dimension of love. This tiny person, created from the love between her and Nathan, was a miracle she had never dared to dream of. Nathan was a devoted father, often found in the nursery in the middle of the night, rocking William and singing off-key lullabies. "I never knew I could love someone this much," he confessed to Beatrice one night as they watched their son sleep. "I thought I understood love when I met you, but this, what we've created together, it's beyond anything I imagined." "We're so lucky," Beatrice agreed, resting her head on his shoulder. "Sometimes I have to pinch myself to believe this is all real." "It's real," Nathan assured her, kissing her temple, "and it's forever." William was followed by a daughter, Sarah, 2 years later, and then another son, James, 2 years after that. The house that had once felt too large and empty was now filled with the sounds of children laughing and playing. Beatrice, who had once thought herself destined for loneliness, found herself surrounded by family and love. She stayed involved in her charitable work, expanding the program to include education and job training for both men and women. The Double I Ranch became known not just for its quality cattle, but for its community involvement and fair treatment of workers. Beatrice took pride in knowing she had helped create that reputation. The years passed in a blur of happiness and hard work. There were challenges, of course. Droughts that threatened the herd, economic downturns that required careful management, the normal trials of raising children and running a ranch. But Beatrice and Nathan faced everything together, their partnership growing stronger with each obstacle overcome. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Nathan took Beatrice to the spot he had originally planned to propose, the bend in the Rio Grande where you could see for miles. The children were with Alina for the night, giving them rare time alone together. "Do you remember what I said in the bedroom that day I proposed?" Nathan asked as they stood watching the sun set over the water. "You said I was your horizon, your future," Beatrice recalled, smiling at the memory. "I was wrong," Nathan said, and when she looked at him in surprise, he continued, "You're not my horizon. You're my home. You're the place I always want to return to, the person who makes everywhere we go feel right. You're my past, my present, and my future all wrapped into one." Beatrice felt tears prick her eyes, emotional as always when Nathan spoke from his heart. "You're my home too. You saved me, Nathan, not just from poverty or hard work, but from believing I wasn't worthy of love. You showed me who I could be." "No," Nathan corrected gently. "I just saw who you already were. You saved yourself, Beatrice. You just let me come along for the journey." They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, two people who had found in each other exactly what they needed. The plain washwoman and the rich rancher, defying expectations and creating a love story that would be told in Laredo for generations. As they rode back to the ranch in the gathering darkness, Beatrice thought about the girl she had been, scrubbing steps and believing herself invisible. That girl would never have imagined this life, this love, this abundance of joy. But she had dared to hope, had been brave enough to accept Nathan's love when it was offered, and that choice had changed everything. The ranch house was lit up against the night sky, warm and welcoming. Alina had brought the children home and put them to bed, and Beatrice could see through the window that she was reading in the parlor, probably waiting to hear about their evening. "Ready to go home?" Nathan asked, helping her down from her horse. Beatrice looked at the house, thought about her children sleeping upstairs, thought about the life she and Nathan had built together. "More than ready," she said, taking his hand. "Let's go home." They walked into the house together, and Beatrice felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. This was her life now. Not the life she had been born to, but the one she had chosen, the one she had earned through courage and love. And it was more than she had ever dared to dream. Years continued to pass, each one bringing new experiences and deeper bonds. William grew into a serious young man who loved the ranch work and showed every sign of one day being a worthy successor to his father. Sarah was spirited and intelligent, with her mother's compassion and her father's determination. James was the family comedian, always ready with a joke or a prank that kept everyone laughing. Beatrice watched her children grow with pride and occasional melancholy, knowing that each milestone brought them closer to leaving the nest. But Nathan reminded her that they would always be a family, always connected by the love they had built together. When William turned 18 in 1902, Nathan officially made him a partner in the ranch operations. It was a warm spring day, and the whole family gathered to celebrate. William stood tall and proud as Nathan handed him the papers, and Beatrice couldn't help but remember the day she had met Nathan, when she had been 22 and certain her life would never amount to anything significant. "Mother, why are you crying?" Sarah asked, slipping her hand into Beatrice's. "Happy tears," Beatrice assured her daughter. "I'm just thinking about how blessed we are." That evening, after the celebration had ended and the children had gone to bed, Beatrice and Nathan sat on their porch as they had so many times before. They were older now, with silver threading through their hair and lines marking their faces, but the love between them was as strong as ever. "You ever regret it?" Beatrice asked suddenly. "Choosing me instead of someone your mother would have preferred, someone who came from your world?" Nathan looked at her in genuine surprise. "Not for a single second. You gave me everything I ever wanted, Beatrice. A real partnership, a loving family, a life filled with meaning. How could I possibly regret that? I just wonder sometimes what your life might have been like if you had made a different choice that day." "It would have been empty," Nathan said firmly. "Full of money and status and all the things that don't actually matter. You taught me what real wealth is. It's this, right here. It's knowing that I'll wake up tomorrow next to the woman I love, in a house full of children we created together, on land we've worked and nurtured. That's worth more than all the gold in California." Beatrice leaned against him, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "I love you, Nathan Irons, just as much today as the day we married. More even." "More than yesterday, less than tomorrow," Nathan said, repeating the words that had become their private motto over the years. "That's how love is supposed to work." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the house, one of their children laughed at something, the sound carrying clearly through the open windows. A coyote called in the distance, and Nathan's prize stallion whinnied in response from the barn. These were the sounds of their life, the symphony they had composed together. And as Beatrice sat there with Nathan's arm around her shoulders and the warm Texas night enveloping them both, she knew with absolute certainty that she had found her place in the world. She was no longer plain Beatrice Owens, the invisible washwoman. She was Beatrice Irons, beloved wife, devoted mother, respected member of the community. But more importantly, she was herself, fully and completely, loved for exactly who she was. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, sensing the depth of her emotions. "I'm thinking about that day you spilled water on yourself in the dining room," Beatrice said with a small laugh. "Well, when I spilled water on you, rather, If that hadn't happened, if Mrs. Henderson hadn't needed me to serve that night, would we ever have met? We would have found each other somehow, Nathan said with conviction. Some things are just meant to be. Do you really believe that? I believe that you and I were always going to find each other, one way or another. The universe has a way of bringing together people who belong together. He kissed the top of her head. And we definitely belong together. Beatrice couldn't argue with that. They did belong together in a way that transcended logic or social convention. They fit, two pieces of a puzzle that had finally found their match. As they finally went inside for the night, Beatrice paused in the doorway to look back at the land stretching out in all directions. 20 years ago, she had been scrubbing steps and dreaming of simply surviving another day. Now she stood in the doorway of her own home, with a husband who adored her and children who brought her joy beyond measure. The journey from there to here had not always been easy, but it had been worth every difficult moment. Because love, real love, the kind that saw past appearances and social status to the person underneath, that kind of love was worth fighting for. It was worth believing in, even when the world said it was impossible. Nathan appeared beside her, following her gaze. "What do you see when you look out there?" "Home," Beatrice said simply. "I see home." And that was the truth of it. She had found her home not in a place but in a person, in the man who had looked at a plain washwoman and seen someone worth loving. In the family they had built together, in the life they had created from nothing but hope and determination. The cowboy had said, "You're the one I want," and he had meant it. Through all the years and all the changes, through challenges and triumphs, through ordinary days and extraordinary moments, he had never wavered in that commitment, and neither had she. As they prepared for bed that night, moving around each other with the easy familiarity of decades together, Beatrice felt a profound sense of peace. This was what happiness looked like. Not the dramatic gestures or grand declarations, but the quiet comfort of knowing you were loved, completely and unconditionally. "I'm glad you spilled that water," Nathan said as they climbed into bed, echoing her earlier thoughts. Beatrice laughed, snuggling against his chest. "So am I." "Best mistake I ever made." "Second best," Nathan corrected. "The best decision you made was saying yes when I asked you to marry me." "That wasn't a mistake, that was the smartest thing I ever did." Nathan chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest. "We could debate this all night, but I have better things to do with my time." "Oh, like what?" "Like telling my beautiful wife how much I love her, like thanking her for giving me the best 20 years of my life. Like planning the next 20 years and the 20 after that and however many more we're blessed with." Beatrice tilted her head up to kiss him, pouring all her love and gratitude into the gesture. When they broke apart, she whispered, "Here's to forever then." "To forever," Nathan agreed. "With you, always with you." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms as they had every night for 20 years and would every night for however many more they were granted. Outside, the wind whispered through the cottonwood trees, and the stars wheeled slowly across the vast Texas sky. The Double I Ranch settled into sleep, another day complete, another chapter in their ongoing story written and closed. And in the morning, they would wake up together and begin again, building on the foundation they had created, loving each other through whatever the new day brought. Because that was what they did, what they had always done. They loved each other, fully and completely, the plain woman and the rich man who had dared to defy convention and follow their hearts. It was a love story for the ages, proof that true love could transcend any obstacle. And as the years continued to pass, as their children grew and had children of their own, as the Double I Ranch prospered and expanded under their joint leadership, that love only grew stronger. Beatrice and Nathan Irons lived long, happy lives together, their love story becoming legend in Laredo and beyond. They were partners in every sense of the word, building an empire based not just on wealth but on compassion and integrity. And when they finally passed, many years later and within months of each other, they left behind a legacy that went far beyond money or property. They left behind children and grandchildren who knew what real love looked like. They left behind a community made better by their generosity and vision. They left behind proof that love could overcome any obstacle, that two people from completely different worlds could create something beautiful together. But most of all, they left behind the memory of a love that had transformed them both. The cowboy who had learned that true wealth wasn't measured in cattle or land, but in the richness of a life shared with someone who understood and cherished you. And the washwoman who had learned that she was never plain at all, that she had always been beautiful, worthy, and deserving of love. Their story ended the way all the best love stories do, not with an ending at all, but with a continuation. Because love like theirs doesn't really end. It lives on in the hearts of those who witnessed it, in the family they created, in the lives they touched. It becomes part of the fabric of the world, a reminder that magic can happen when two people are brave enough to take a chance on each other. And somewhere in the vast expanse of the Texas sky, among the stars that had witnessed their first kiss and their last, their love story continued, eternal and unchanging. The cowboy and the washwoman, together forever, exactly as they had always meant to be. The end of one chapter, perhaps, but never truly the end. Because real love, the kind that Beatrice and Nathan shared, never really ends at all.